It's Late Night with David Mancuso! With special guest, Claire Victor! And now, without further ado, your host, David Mancuso!
Thank you very, very much. Thank you. A big crowd here tonight. We have a really wonderful show for you all this evening, and so let's go right at it. I'm here tonight with a very special guest, Claire Victor, and Claire is a prolific, wonderful quilter, known for her modern quilting. So we're going to talk to Claire about today's modern quilting and where everything's going here. So welcome, Claire.
Well, thank you very much, David, for that lovely introduction, and I'm delighted to be here.
Okay, so tell me, where are you broadcasting from this evening? Where are you?
Well, I am in Scottsdale, Arizona. We're in the middle of monsoon season, so we may get some weather soon or not. And it's nice. Other than that, it's nice and sunny and warm, just the way I like it.
Yeah, I think more and more people are liking it that way. Although we're having we were 100 degrees here today in New Hope in Pennsylvania. So
well, we're happy because it's only like 100 degrees here. So it's cool.
Yeah, I guess so. And you know what they say, it's a dry cool. I mean, excuse me, a dry hot as opposed to. So I know there's a lot of wonderful artists in the Southwest, and it's kind of known for that. But are you? If you would tell the audience, I know you're not a native to Scottsdale. Tell us about your journey, how you ended up in Scottsdale, where you came from.
Oh, okay. Well, I was born and raised in New York, in Westchester County, and I started my quilting journey a little over 22 years ago. I was a member for many years of a wonderful guild in Westchester called Northern Star Quilters, and a great community, lots of friends. And through the years, I quilted with all of them. And then after a while, my husband and I moved to Florida, where we were there for just a year and a half. Then he was retired. I wasn't yet. Then next we went to Palm Springs, California, and now we're in Arizona and I'm retired. But as far as my quilting journey, I think I have picked up the modern quilting. I don't think that I was ever a totally traditional quilter, although that's the way I learned. And I'm just happy to be a part of the whole quilting world with nice people and interesting things happening.
Well, with many of the wonderful entries that we see come your way, I don't know if I would say you're retired. I might have to argue with that on that, because the creativity is really flowing there. You've won many ribbons with us over the years, and recently won Best Mid-Century Modern in our online competition at the Spring Festival, Piercing Pyramids, and you won first place Mid-Century Modern at the Mid-Atlantic Quilt Festival with parading parallelograms. So I know that you've given our producer several photographs. So let's start by showing everyone some of your work, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about it. The first one we have is titled Paper Cuts.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that quilt.
Okay, so that quilt was, I have a couple of notes in front of me, so excuse me if I look down.
Okay.
That quilt was completed in 2017. It was in QuiltCon. It was exhibited in QuiltCon. It was published in the magazine Simply Quilts. It was in Road to California. It was in AQS Virginia Beach. And then, best of all, it was in World Quilt New England 2019, and it won Best Modern Quilt.
Beautiful.
So do you want me to talk at all about the actual quilt?
Well, okay. Well, we have quite a few to go through, but
Okay.
it is kind of interesting because, obviously there's some motivation to create a certain, why would it be paper cuts or
Okay. So I'll just speak to the title, which is that for whatever reason, I envisioned this as pieces of colored paper suspended and other pieces intersecting them. And so that's why it was called paper cuts.
Okay,
It's hard to think up names for these things.
yeah, but your names are very creative, just as creative as the quilts. So we'll go on to the next image.
Okay.
Parading parallelograms.
Parallelograms.
Right.
Okay, this was completed in 2018, and at your Mid-Atlantic Quilt Festival 2020, it took a first place. It was also in Road to California and Paducah and Grand Rapids.
Yeah, I believe it actually it took first place mid-century modern at Mid-Atlantic. I remember
Yes.
there. I remember it well. I remember it up there on the triangle.
Thank you.
You have a fabulous eye for these things. So the next one is another catchy title, Presence of Mine.
Yes. And this quilt, as you can see, it's kind of based on the tumbling block. A lot of my quilts are based on the tumbling block. And if they're not based on the tumbling block, when I design them, I use an isometric grid, which is the same grid of the tumbling block. At any rate, when I started quilting this, I wanted to put different quilting designs in all of the boxes, and they started to look like presents. So I thought presence of mine. And this, in your visuals, well, by now we're locked down. And so in visuals 1, 2020, you gave me a Best Sewing Machine Workmanship Award.
Right. You gave yourself a best sewing machine. Yes, it's interesting because we have a lot of fun in the office. Seeing who the winners are. We even go through our own little bit about who likes what, and we try to pick who they're going to be and things like that.
Sure.
And I'm very attracted to what I call mid-century modern style. So I'm going to get to you on that in a little bit. The next one is what is it?
So this is Passing Through.
Oh, Passing Through
Was completed in 2019, and in your Visuals 2 competition in 2020, it took Best Modern Quilt.
Right. It has tremendous dimension. Right.
Yes.
Tremendous dimension. I noticed that also the quilting on this is a little bit more elaborate. And to some of the other ones, are you obviously you're machine quilting, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
I am machine quilting on a domestic machine with no stitch regulator. So
Right.
my quilts are all of my quilts are wall quilts. They're smaller than
Right.
a lot of other quilts because it's just what I can handle in my space.
Well, there's a lot of quilting on the surface of that quilt, so
Yes.
I can see just what you mean. Our next one, Tumble Around. Another
Tumble
great
around.
title.
And so also in the visuals number 2, this took a 3rd place in the modern category. And yeah, I like this one a lot. So this one is modern, but it's traditional. I don't know, and it's tumbling blocks.
So let's move on to the next one, Tumble Down, which I think I love it. Right.
And so this took a 3rd place in visuals number 3. And actually, I think one of the comments from your judges was that maybe it shouldn't have been in the modern category, that it should have been in the innovative category.
that maybe they don't understand.
Well,
It is kind of interesting that you say that, because again, we're going to get into this, what modern quilting is, and so to me, it's a great example of modernism. And so I always, well, we'll talk about it in a few moments. Let's go through the images that you sent us, because they're just great. So we have piercing pyramids.
and so piercing pyramids so this was completed in 2021. And in your visuals number 4, it took Best Modern Quilt. And it'll be exhibited in Houston this year.
It's beautiful. I love the colors in the background. They almost seem like floating pyramids, which I can make up my own title for it.
Yes, I just was going with the alliteration. And actually, this was, as I was designing this, I came up with the pyramid, and I realized, well, it's actually kind of a diamond, whatever. I had never used that image before. So right. I had fun. And the ribbon kind of weaves through it.
Okay. Do you sketch before you create?
I do. I sketch everything. My process right now, which has developed over the years, is that I sketch everything on isometric graph paper. So, and that allows me to come up with these designs. I go through many sketches. I eventually decide on what I want. I then have to color it in and see if it works. And then I have to kind of divide the drawing up the way you would paper piece it almost, because all of my quilts that I'm doing now are hand pieced together. It's really the only way that I can get the design, only way I can figure out to get the designs that I want to get. So they're hand pieced and
very good effect on it. I guess the last image we have is where you are now, your sewing room.
So this is an image of my sewing room. On the right, you can see my sewing machine, which is a Bernina 710. And it has a custom-made Sew Steady table so that it fits in that little nook there. And the whole rest of the setup is from the Container Store. It's their Alpha line. You can see my computer. That's where I'm sitting right now. Up above, you can see some storage of quilts, and I guess that's it.
Very compact and neat. Does it always look that neat?
Well, no, but to take the picture, I decided I better clean it up.
Mine never looks. My area where I work never looks that neat. Many people. So let's go on to what modern quilting is, and we've come up with, our modern competitions are called mid-century modern, and it reflects not only American but also European and around the world. The mid 20th century, maybe even a little earlier, like the modernism period, really started really in the teens and went right up through the 1970s. And so I've always find it hard to say, well, something's modern, but you have to tell the difference between what's modern and what's contemporary, right? So I've narrowed that down, or we've narrowed that down when we decided to start putting in a modern quilt category. I kept following this, and a lot of people had many different opinions as to what modern quilting is, and some of it pertained to the stitching and the primitiveness of stitching, which would be more naive art as opposed to modern art. So we've come up with mid-century modern, and that's what our competitions are. And so they have to reflect what you would see if you were standing at the Moda and looking at something, or a good piece of Denmark mid-century pottery with cats on it, that type of thing. So gradations, cubicle, which would be cubist, which is modern. So what would you say? I'm going to put you on the spot. What would you describe modern quilting to be?
Well, I love your description, and I I completely agree with you. What I'm not quite sure what it means. It seems to be there can't be one definition for it, but there's not one definition for what art is either. And as far as modern quilts go, I think it's evolving, ever evolving. Part of what is evolving is based on the competitions, their criteria. But back to a modern quilt, I think a modern quilt has certain attributes. So a lot of the modern quilts use improv piecing. I'm not personally doing improv now, but a lot of them do. A lot of them use solid colors and bright colors, which is something that I do. I use only solids and blenders, and that gives it a very graphic look. Any of my quilts, if you changed all the fabrics out, they would look totally different. The negative space is a big thing. It is important with modern quilting, and minimal design, maybe asymmetrical design, which you just saw in Piercing Pyramids. And the quilting is often different. They use a lot of straight line quilting. You don't really see things like feathers. And I guess that's it for now.
That's very funny that you say that, because we always have, I always sit with the judges for breakfast. And one of the categories we go over the most is this mid-century modern. And when you have California, when you have 10 judges and you decide which two are going to do the modern. And so I always cover design, that, how we feel about it. And, this is what we're looking for. And then, but it's very funny that you said the feathers, because I very often say, now listen, it could have a great design, but if it's got a princess feather in the middle of it, you might want to think twice as to whether or not it's completely modern. So I think the fact that you said feathers is kind of interesting. So I think you and I are on the same page, as to what it is, and so because I've always looked at it where. Traditional quilting is obviously what we've seen in the past as tradition. And I've always looked at innovative as taking a traditional pattern, a log cabin or whatever it may be, and turning it into something totally innovative, where the modern quilting is a style of its own. And right. So that's how I feel about it. So I'd like to cover a little bit more about your creative process. I know okay. We've talked about, sketching first and what have you. But before that, what started you quilting? Did you quilt as a child? I mean, or actually, what started you sewing?
No, I didn't quilt as a child. Nobody in my family quilts or quilted, but my mom was, a very prolific and avid sewist. And I mean, she made everything from clothes to upholstery to everything. And certainly made a lot of clothes for me. And, but I didn't learn sewing from her. I learned sewing in home ec, and that's how old I am, in home ec, in school. And then somewhere along the line, I decided that I wanted to start sewing my own clothes. So I started taking classes, and in the place that I was taking classes downstairs, there was a quilt shop. I didn't even know what a quilt shop was. I thought it was for grandmothers. But when I went downstairs, I saw that it was not. It was very interesting. And, I just kept going down there, and eventually I took a class and joined a guild, and the rest is history.
Wow. Yeah, a lot of people, many people have that same story. They're exposed to it, and all of a sudden it clicks.
Yeah.
And they realize that that's what they want to do. It is interesting. So we've seen pretty much, your immediate atmosphere where you work. We just looked at your studio, but are you do you draw inspiration anywhere outside of, like, where do you draw your inspiration from?
Inspiration comes, who knows where inspiration comes from? I mean, it's osmosis or something. But I will tell you that recently, since we're doing all this quarantining, I have taken up origami. And so these things are very quilty looking to me.
They sure are.
And they're also 3D. So they're a big challenge to make for me because I don't understand anything about geometry or math. And that goes the same for my quilts.
They're really, are they made of paper? What are they?
Yeah, these are made of paper. Yep.
Paper.
Yeah, but that's like a, I don't know, pinwheel. Half square triangles.
I never be able to do that. That's absolutely amazing. So I'm sure every now and then you sit down and you have a creative block. So
I just keep drawing until something.
That's how you get over it. You just keep sketching.
I just keep sketching.
Wow. Are there any other artists that, whether or not they're quilt artists or work in another genre that are part of your inspiration or that you admire?
Yes, I love, I've always been impressed with MC Escher, and I love Victor Vasarely, and I love Picasso, and
so you're right there.
All of the same artists, no doubt, that you're interested in.
Yeah, you're right there too when we talk about the influence of these quilts.
Yes.
So wow, this has been a lot of fun. Do you sell your work?
If you want to buy it, should we talk later?
No, I'm just actually maybe I will want to buy some, but if you sell your work, I would like to tell the audience that our audience that how they can buy your work.
Oh, I don't have a website. They can, but I do have an Instagram account, CV Quilts.
Okay.
And I mean, they can always reach me through Instagram. I'm always happy to sell a quilt. I have too many, but people don't necessarily want to pay. So if anybody has deep pockets, give me a call.
Yeah, that's right. Call her if you have deep pockets. And she's on Instagram, CV Quilts. Instagram has become the new websites.
Yeah.
Right? So they're very, very powerful. It's a very powerful and social media platform that does not get clogged up with a lot of nonsense. And it's a great platform, and we certainly do a lot of it. And we find that a lot of people are very interested to see what you post and what have you. Have you published at all? Have you gotten into publishing or any books?
You mean like doing a book or something?
Yeah.
No, I haven't, because again, I don't really know how I do the things that I do.
Right.
So, I come up with the concept and I eventually make a pattern, which I have to alter as I go along. But I'm not sure that I could ever put it down, or be able, I need somebody else to come to me and say they want to make a pattern of one of my designs.
Right.
So no.
So we've had 15 months of dealing with the pandemic. Tell me what positive has come out of this for you.
Well, I've been able to do a lot of quilting, and I've started to learn origami. And I've realized, not that I didn't realize before, but how important, your friends and family are to you, and how important it is to smell the roses, so to speak, and maybe slow down a little bit instead of always being in such a hurry.
That's a wonderful summation. We thank you very much for joining us tonight. This has been a great show, and I hope everyone out there in the quilt world has enjoyed it. I certainly have.
Thank you, David. It's been great to be here.
Thank you. We're looking forward to seeing more of your work in the future.
And you will.